In this video, we're going to read and work on practice questions together to help you learn tips to help you improve your reading comprehension skills for the GED RLA test. Now, the questions in this video are designed to help you learn and develop foundational skills for reading comprehension. The questions aren't meant to be the same difficulty as the real test. Some of them might be comparable, but the purpose here is not to test you so much as it is to help you gain foundational skills that will help you improve your reading comprehension. So let's get started. Uncle Charlie Wheeler stamped on the steps before Nance McGregor's bake shop on the main street of the town of Cold Creek, Pennsylvania, and then went quickly inside. Something pleased him, and as he stood before the counter in the shop, he laughed and whistled softly. So the first question is, what is the setting? So let me give you a chance now, if you'd like to pause the video, take all the time you need to think about this, and whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll go over the first question. Okay, so let me jump in here and give the answer. So the answer is found right here in the highlighted text. The story is taking place inside of a bake shop on the main street of the town called Cold Creek. So as long as you had something like this, Cold Creek, inside of a bake shop on the main street, then consider that you got the right answer. So if you weren't sure what I meant by setting, let me go over this now, because setting is very important, and you might be asked point blank on your test to identify what is the setting of a story. So let me tell you what that means. So the setting is where the story takes place and also when. And the setting will often change throughout the story. Now, I like to give strategies in my reading comprehension videos, and the reason is because sometimes when you get in there and you take the test and you've got a lot riding on the test and you've got that time ticking down and you see a big, huge chunk of text in front of you on the screen, it can be overwhelming and it can be stressful. So sometimes going in with a strategy can be helpful. And I call this the SCCT method. And basically, the S stands for setting, right? Where is the story taking place and when? And the C stands for the characters. So if nothing else from this video, one thing that you can take away from this is that whenever you read a passage, try to look for where is the story taking place, when is it taking place, and who are the characters. And sometimes it can help to jot down a word or two each time a character comes up to help you remember that character. It's up to you to decide if you want to do that or if you think that's just going to take up more of your time on the test. Totally up to you. But I'm a big believer in identifying the setting and the characters. And if you do that, oftentimes the conflict and the theme will jump right out at you. So the conflict could be maybe there are characters that have problems with each other, something of that nature, and theme is the message that the writer wants to communicate to you. And it's usually a statement about human nature or how the world works, and you might also get a question where they ask you point blank, what is the theme? So just be prepared for that. And like I said, it can be hard sometimes to take in all the information at once, so this SCCT strategy is just here to kind of help you break what you're reading down into smaller, more manageable chunks. And really, I do believe that if you identify the setting, pay attention to the characters, it's going to help you find the conflict in the theme. So let's keep rolling here. And the next question says, which of the following best describes Uncle Charlie Wheeler's mood? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So now is your chance, if you'd like to pause the video, take all the time that you need with this, and whenever you're ready, unpause the video and we'll talk about it. Okay, so the correct answer here is B, content. And we see a couple words here like pleased and laughed and whistled. And so if you think about it, if someone's upset, right, the person's probably not going to be laughing or whistling or feeling pleased, right? Same with discouraged and hopeless. So B, content, is the correct answer here. And one thing that I want to draw your attention to here is the fact that we see that one word is not like the others, right? So upset, discouraged, hopeless, these are all negative things, whereas being content is something positive. So sometimes if you ever get stuck on a question and you're just not sure what the answer is and the time's ticking down and you have to guess, sometimes you can look and see if one answer choice is unlike the others, and if you have one that jumps out at you that's not like the other answer choices, sometimes that's the one that you want to guess. Now, of course, when you go into the test, I want you to be able to reason your way through the questions and figure them out and not have to guess. But if you do have to guess, this is just something you can try, and it's not always going to work. There's no guarantee, but just something I wanted to throw at you. So we'll keep rolling here. It says on the screen, "It was an ill day for births in Cold Creek, even for the birth of one of Uncle Charlie's inspirations. Snow lay piled along the sidewalks and in the gutters of Main Street. Snow sorted with the gathered grime of human endeavor that went on day and night in the bowels of the hills. Through the soiled snow walked miners, stumbling along silently. In their bare hands they carried dinner pails." So the next question is, the word sorted most likely means which of the following? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance, if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, and whenever you're ready, unpause the video, and whether you got this right or wrong, we don't care right now. All we care about right now is learning and getting some practice. So let me give you a chance to try this now. Okay, so let's talk about this. So the correct answer here is B, dirty. Now, one thing you can do sometimes if you have to figure out what a word means is you can look for words near it and look for words around it. And here we see the word sorted, we see the word grime, we see soiled, right? And so you might not know what sorted means, but you might be able to picture grime, or you might be able to picture soiled snow, right? Like dirty snow. And so that could help you come to the conclusion that B is the correct answer. And so again, hopefully you won't have to guess on many questions when you go in to take the test, but if you do have to guess, I recommend using process of elimination to roll out as many answer choices as you can first. I think that helps raise the probability of getting the question right. Norman, the McGregor boy, tall and awkward and with a towering nose, great hippopotamus-like mouth, and fiery red hair, followed Uncle Charlie, politician, postmaster, and village wit, to the door and looked after him as with the loaf of bread under his arm he hurried along the street. The eyes of the McGregor boy as he stood in the door of the bake shop watching the struggling miners glistened with hatred. It was the quality of intense hatred for his fellows in the mines that marked the boy and made him stand forth among his fellows. So the next question says, what's one word you can think of for each character to help you remember him? And to do this, you're probably going to want to start by identifying who the characters are that have been introduced so far, and come up with a word or maybe a couple words to help you remember each character. And there's really no right or wrong answers here. You can do this in your head, you can write it down, whatever works for you. But let me give you a chance now to pause the video and try this out. So this is a tip that I often give in my reading comprehension videos, and I think this can be helpful, especially when you have a bunch of different characters introduced and it's kind of hard to keep them straight. And this is just to think of a single word to remember each character. Now, you could use a couple words. That's fine, too. But the idea here is that if you can make it as visual as possible, I think that's going to help you remember it even more. So, for example, let's say that one character is a boxer. You could maybe, form a mental picture of that character with boxing gloves, right? Or if you're told that a character is a doctor, you could picture that character with a stethoscope or something like that. And the point here is just, to teach you a fairly simple way of keeping the characters straight. All right. And if you want to, you can even, jot these down each time a new character comes up, jot something down to help you remember that character. But again, it's up to you to decide if you want to do that on your test or not. But like I said, there's no right or wrong answer here. And there might be a couple different, there are a bunch of different ways you could go with this. But for me, here's just a couple ideas I had. So there's Norman, or the McGregor boy, and we're told that he has a hippopotamus-like mouth. So that right there is a pretty strong image. So throughout the rest of the story, if I forget who that character is, I can just, or if there's a bunch of characters talking back and forth and stuff like that, and I need to keep them straight, I can remember, hey, who's the McGregor boy? Oh, he's the one with the hippopotamus-like mouth, right? Because that's a pretty strong image. There's also, we know that he's a store worker, so you could picture him working at a store, maybe wearing a uniform, something like that. He's also a hater, right? We know that he's full of hatred, so that would be another good word to help remember him. So for Uncle Charlie, there are several different things you could have came up with. Like I said, there's not really a right or wrong answer for this, just a couple things that I thought of here. So there's a politician, so maybe you could picture him wearing a suit or something like that, like, politicians often do. Or you could think of him as a postmaster, right? Because we're told that he's a postmaster. So like I said, The idea here is just to help get you some practice using this technique. You're free to use this on your test or not to, totally up to you to decide. But anyway, let's keep rolling here. In Cold Creek, when men got drunk, they staggered in silence through the street. Did one of them, in a moment of stupid animal sportiveness, execute a clumsy dance upon the barroom floor? His fellow laborers looked at him dumbly, or turning away, left him to finish without witnesses his clumsy hilarity. Standing in the doorway and looking up and down the bleak village street, some dim realization of the disorganized ineffectiveness of life as he knew it came into the mind of the McGregor boy. He seemed to him right and natural that he should hate men. With a blank on his lips, he thought of Barney Butterlips, who was forever talking of a day coming when men would march shoulder to shoulder and life in Cold Creek, life everywhere, should cease being aimless and become definite and full of meaning. Okay, so the next question says, the word missing in the blank above is most likely which of the following? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So let me give you a chance now, if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out. The blank is right here on the screen. Which word do you think fits in the blank there? Okay, so the correct answer here is sneer, right? So to get a question like this right, you just kind of have to just reason your way through it. You could maybe try reading the sentence with each word in it in the blank. Something like this you could read, with a sneer on his lips, with a tooth on his lips, with a dictionary on his lips, with a fingernail on his lips. Sometimes just kind of reading it like I did there, or even reading more of the sentence or even the full sentence, just kind of plug in each word and just read it and see if the sentence sounds right. Sometimes that can help you get the right answer. Another trick could be just using process of elimination as much as possible until you get the right answer. But at any rate, the right answer here is a sneer. So if you got this right, great work. If not, great work for trying. They will never do that, and who wants them to, mused the McGregor boy. A blast of wind-bearing snow beat upon him, and he turned into the shop and slammed the door behind him. Another thought stirred in his head and brought a flush to his cheeks. He turned and stood in the silence of the empty shop, shaking with emotion. If I could form the men of this place into an army, I would lead them to the mouth of the old Shumway cut and push them in, he threatened, shaking his fist towards the door. The next morning, when Butte McGregor pushed his baker's cart along the street and began climbing the hill toward the miners' cottages, he went, not as Norman McGregor, the town baker boy, only product of cracked McGregor of Cold Creek, but as a personage, a being, the object of an art. The name given him by Uncle Charlie Wheeler had made him a marked man. He was as the hero of a popular romance, galvanized into life and striding in the flesh before the people. Men looked at him with new interest, inventorying anew the huge mouth and nose and flaming hair. The bartender, sweeping the snow from before the door of the saloon, shouted at him. Hey, Norman, he called. Sweet Norman. Norman is too a pretty name. Butte is the name for you. Oh, you Butte. Question. Which of the following is true? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So let me give you a chance now if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so the correct answer here is D, and let's talk about these here. So why is A wrong? Well, Butte McGregor is Norman McGregor, right? So they're the same person, and it tells us here that the name given him by Uncle Charlie Wheeler had made him a marked man. So we know that B is false as well, because Uncle Charlie is the one that gave Norman the nickname. So what about C? Only Uncle Charlie Wheeler calls Norman Butte. Well, we see here, right near the end, we see here that the bartender says, hey, Norman, sweet Norman, Butte is the name for you, oh, you Butte. So we know that it's not just Uncle Wheeler, right? So the correct answer here is D, none of the above. The tall boy pushed the cart silently along the street. Again, he hated Cold Creek. He hated the bakery and the bakery cart. With a burning, satisfying hate, he hated Uncle Charlie Wheeler and the Reverend Weeks. Old fools, he muttered as he shook the snow off his hat and paused to breathe in the struggle up the hill. He had something new to hate. He hated his own name. It did sound ridiculous. He had thought before that there was something fancy and pretentious about it. He wished it might have been plain John or Jim or Fred. A quiver of irritation at his mother passed through him. She might have used more sense, he muttered. Question. The word quiver most likely means which of the following in the paragraph above? Is the answer A, B, C, or what about D? So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, and then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. So the correct answer is B, slight amount. Now, what about A? Well, it is true that the word quiver can mean container used for holding arrows. That is true. But here in this context, it means slight amount, right? A slight amount of irritation that his mother passed through him versus a container used for holding arrows of irritation that his mother passed through him. So B is the correct answer here. And then the thought came to him that his father might have chosen the name. That checked his flight toward universal hatred, and he began pushing the cart forward again, a more genial current of thought running through his mind. The tall boy loved the memory of his father, Cracked McGregor. They called him Cracked until that became his name, he thought. Now they are at me. The thought renewed a feeling of fellowship between himself and his dead father. It softened him. When he reached the first of the bleak miner's houses, a smile played around the corners of his huge mouth. Question: how does Norman McGregor change in this paragraph? So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, think about this, and we don't have any multiple choice answers for this. This is just for you to think about. You can do this in your head or on a sheet of paper, whatever works for you. So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try this out, and whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. Okay, so what I see here is that he starts out feeling hatred, right? He's kind of got rage, and then he softened, right? It says here that the thought renewed a feeling of fellowship between himself and his dead father. It softened him. Okay, so now he might be feeling happy, right? It says that a smile played about the corners of his huge mouth. This video's champion shoutout goes to two test takers. One says, 43, wanting my GED, didn't care till now, been out of school for 24 years, I'm scared. And the other says, same, I'm overwhelmed. So I want to wish both of these test takers the best of luck. And anyone watching this right now, maybe you're feeling at least a little scared or at least a little overwhelmed. And I just want to try to give you some encouragement to keep going here and to keep persevering, because I really do believe that everyone who perseveres long enough will be able to pass the GED test. And I've seen people overcome crazy circumstances. I've seen all kinds of crazy stories from people in my time doing this, and I really do believe that everybody can pass through hard work. And so just know that if you're feeling overwhelmed or scared, that we're all in this together. I want to see you succeed, and if you keep going and keep working hard, someday you'll have your own success story. In his day, Cracked McGregor had not borne a good reputation in Cold Creek. He was a tall, silent man with something morose and dangerous about him. He inspired fear born of hatred. In the mines he worked silently and with fiery energy, hating his fellow miners, among whom he was thought to be a bit off his head. They it was who named him Cracked McGregor, and they avoided him while subscribing to the common opinion that he was the best miner in the district. The word morose most likely means which of the following. Is it A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So A is the correct answer here. Now, process of elimination, I've said it once, I'll say it again. I'll keep repeating it because it can really help here. And what we see here is that, he inspires fear born of hatred. And we see the word harmless here, but we also see the word dangerous. So if you come up here to the word morose, you see the word dangerous right after. So if we know that he's dangerous, right, we probably wouldn't also say that he's harmless. Okay, and as far as stylish goes, we don't really see anything here that indicates that he would be stylish. So that's one way you could just eliminate answer choices until you got to A as the correct answer. There's different ways to think about this, of course, but the correct answer here is A, gloomy. In his house also, Cracked McGregor was silent. When he spoke at all, he spoke kindly and looked into the eyes of his wife with an eager, expectant air. To his red-haired son, he seemed to be forever pouring forth a kind of dumb affection. Taking the boy in his arms, he sat for hours rocking back and forth, saying nothing. When the boy was ill or troubled by strange dreams at night, the feel of his father's arms about him quieted him. In his arms, the boy went to sleep happily. In the mind of the father, there was a single reoccurring thought. We have but the one bairn, I think is how you say that word. Will not put him into the hole in the ground. He said, looking eagerly to the mother for approval. Okay, so the question here says the phrase hole in the ground most likely refers to which of the following? A tall building, a utility hole with a ladder into the sewage system, a coal mine, a pit made in the family's backyard. So let me give you a chance now if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. Okay, so the correct answer here is a coal mine. Tall building, you would think that that's going to be something that's well above ground if it's a tall building. So sometimes if you see something that's the opposite of the phrase, right, a hole in the ground versus a tall building, that could be a clue to eliminate A. But any way you look at it here, the correct answer is a coal mine, right? We'll not put him into the hole in the ground. We'll not put him into the coal mine.
Twice had Cracked McGregor walked with his son on a Sunday afternoon. Taking the lad by the hand, the miner went up the face of the hill, past the last of the miners' houses, through the grove of pine trees at the summit, and on over the hill into sight of a wide valley on the farther side. When he walked, he twisted his head far to one side like one listening. A falling timber in the mines had given him a deformed shoulder and left a great scar on his face, partly covered by a red beard filled with coal dust. The blow that had deformed his shoulder had clouded his mind. He muttered as he walked along the road and talked to himself like an old man. Question: which of the following is false about Cracked McGregor? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, and whenever you're ready, we'll go over the answer. So the correct answer here is C. C is false. He had a gray beard. How do we know that's false? Well, actually, this detail right here tells us partly covered by a red beard, so we know that he did not have a gray beard, he had a red beard. So one tip I can give you for your test is that if you get to a question and you can't remember the answer from your reading, what you can try is skimming back through the passage until you find the part that talks about that topic, and then just review that part, and sometimes you can find the answer doing that. Now, I don't recommend taking too much time on any one question on your test, but at the same time, if you go too fast on questions, sometimes you don't give yourself enough time to get the right answer. So it's just a balancing act, and at the end of the day, you just have to use your own judgment and intuition to balance that time, right? So again, you don't want to take too long on any one question, but at the same time, if you move on too fast, sometimes you don't give yourself enough time to come up with the answer. So you just want to use your own judgment as far as balancing the time. So I want to now give you two different plans for reading passages, and these two plans aren't anything super complex or anything like that. They're just pretty simple plans that you can use to go into your test with. And the first is the standard approach, and it's really just to read the passage the whole way through and then answer the questions. And like I was just saying a moment ago, what you can do is you can read the passage, and then when you're reviewing the questions, right, if you see a question and you can't remember the answer from the passage, go ahead and go back to the passage and skim through it to find the part that is relevant to that question, and then review that part to find the answer. And this is the approach that I recommend for most people. And in fact, from my experience, this is how a lot of people approach their test. The other method that I want to talk about now is the seek and destroy method. So the seek and destroy method is basically you read the question and then you go find the part of the passage that you think has the answer to that question without having read the passage first. So in other words, you don't read the full passage, you go right to the questions, and then you kind of seek and destroy through the passage to look for the answers. And this method can be effective, and you can succeed with this method, especially if you're good with it. And what a lot of test takers will do is that they will go into the test and they'll start by using the standard approach for at least part of the test, and then they'll see that the time's ticking down, and they'll feel like they're running out of time, and they'll feel like they don't have the time to read through the passages, so they'll just go into seek and destroy mode, and they'll go right to the questions, and then they'll start going back through the passages to skim them to find the answers without reading the full passages. And people do succeed on the test using this, so this can be effective. One thing I want to point out here is that this might not work for all questions, at least in my opinion, but the good news is that you don't have to get every single question right to pass. And let me give you an example of what I mean. So if they give you a question that says, choose the correct order of events in the passage, it might be kind of hard to figure that out using the seek and destroy method if you haven't read the whole passage. So just keep in mind that, this might not work for every single question, but it can be effective and you can succeed using this method. And like I said, I've heard from a lot of students that started using the standard approach for the first part of their test, and then they see the time ticking down and they realize they've got questions left to answer, and they don't feel like they have time to read the passages anymore, so they go into seek and destroy mode. And I've heard from people who have passed doing this. One other tip I want to give you is, if possible, if you're taking practice tests, it doesn't hurt to give both methods a try, right? So maybe if you're doing a practice test for the RLA, for a passage or two, you can try seek and destroy. And that just helps you get some practice doing it. So if you go into your test and you find that the time's ticking down and you feel like you don't have time to read the full passages, you'll have gotten some practice with seek and destroy before you have to do it on your test. All right. So I just wanted to give you these two different strategies, standard approach and seek and destroy. Totally up to you how you want to approach your test. I just wanted to give you some ideas. The red-haired boy ran beside his father happily. He did not see the smiles on the faces of the miners, who came down the hill and stopped to look at the odd pair. The miners went on down the road to sit in front of the stores on Main Street, their day brightened by the memory of the hurrying McGregors. Up the face of the hill climbed the McGregors. In the mind of the boy, 1,000 questions wanted answering. Looking at the silent, gloomy face of his father, he choked back the questions rising in his throat, saving them for the quiet hour with his mother when Cracked McGregor was gone to the mine. He wanted to know of the boyhood of his father, of the life in the mine, of the birds that flew overhead, and why they wheeled and flew in the great ovals in the sky. He looked at the fallen trees in the woods and wondered what made them fall and whether the others would presently fall in their turn. Question: which quotation from the text above supports the idea that Norman is curious? So let me give you a chance now, if you'd like to pause the video, try this out, take all the time you need, and whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. So the correct answer is C. He looked at the fallen trees in the woods and wondered what made them fall and whether others would presently fall in their turn. So if he is wondering what made the trees fall and if others are going to fall, right, we could draw the conclusion that he is curious, right? So C is the correct answer here. The word wondered here is kind of a clue that could help you figure out that C is the correct answer. Over the hill went the silent pair and through the pine wood to an eminence halfway down the farther side. When the boy saw the valley lying so green and broad and fruitful at their feet, he thought it the most wonderful sight in the world. He was not surprised that his father had brought him there. Sitting on the ground, he opened and closed his eyes, his soul stirred by the beauty of the scene that lay before them. On the hillside, Cracked McGregor went through a kind of ceremony. Sitting upon a log, he made a telescope for his hands and looked over the valley inch by inch like one seeking something lost. For 10 minutes he would look intently at a clump of trees or a spot in the river running through the valley where it broadened and where the water roughened by the wind glistened in the sun. A smile lurked in the corners of his mouth. He rubbed his hands together. He muttered incoherent words and bits of sentences. Once he broke forth into a low, droning song. All right, so the question says, please drag the events into the boxes in the correct order. Now, obviously, you're not really going to be able to drag the boxes into the correct order through your computer screen, but just think about how you would do it. So let me give you an example. So let's say that you review the passage here and you think that Cracked McGregor rubbed his hands together and you think that that's what happened first. You would take this and put this into the box here. Okay, if you think, hey, well, Cracked McGregor started to sing and that happened second in the story, you would put that into the box right here. Okay, now I'm not saying that's the correct order. I'm just using an example here, so hopefully it's clear what I mean here, what I'm asking you to do here, I should say. All right, let me give you a chance now to pause the video. Think about this, take all the time you need, and just imagine how you would answer this question. You can do it on a sheet of paper if you want to, or you can think about it in your head, but I'll turn it over to you now to try this out. Okay, so here we go. So basically, I've highlighted the text here, right? So the first thing that happens is they saw the valley. So then next, he made a telescope right here. Or he made a telescope of his hands. It's not really like a telescope, but he made a telescope of his hands. And then it says he rubbed his hands together, right? And so that's why I have this here in the third box. And then it says that at the end here, we see the text, he broke forth into a low droning song. So the last thing that happened was Cracked McGregor started to sing. So here's the correct order of events.